Hi, Jelly here with my top 10 polishes for 2022. I will be using KB Shimmer's pH balance under all my swatches today. First, we have an honorable mention for my upcoming brand Pear Polish. The name of this polish is Frosty Blush. I would describe this as a classic red with a blue shimmer in it. I plan to release this sometime mid-January, so I will keep you posted then. I also wanted to do something a little different with my swatches. My index finger on the right will have one coat, the middle finger will have two coats, and the ring finger on the left will have three coats. I feel that's important to get to see these polishes with different layers of build, so you would be able to decide your own preference as well as have an easy side-by-side comparison. For me, I love the coverage in the first coat, but I wouldn't say it's quite there. This is definitely more of a frilly formula. I would personally prefer to wear this in two coats, as you can see, just because I feel that gives it the most color capacity. I also feel that brings out the blue shimmer the most. I know it can be a little bit hard to see with my current setup. I am working with what I got, which is a desk lamp and my iPhone. But I do love that as I move my fingers around that you can easily see that blue shimmer come through as well. I also really do love that when you I also do love that when you look at this color with three coats, that the red actually deepens a little bit as well. And this is Frosty Blush in 1, 2, and 3 coats. So for my actual polishes, we are going to go in alphabetical order, and the first one is Owl Lacquer's Bauble. This was a limited edition polish that came out of their polish pickup for November 2022. This is definitely not done with justice on my camera, but when you see the swatch photo, you'll see it. It's this nice, beautiful, dark, warm purple color with this intense red shimmer in it. And then when you look at it at certain angles, that red shimmer does end up becoming more yellow and green at certain angles. It's certainly a gorgeous color. This ended up being one of my favorite polishes of the year because of just how unique it is from that dark warm purple with the shimmer in it. I really love polishes with a gorgeous shimmer in it. One thing about this polish is that it is a little bit on the thicker side, but I was also trying to be a little too generous with my swatches. Or with my nail brush, I didn't want to get too much on the brush and end up having too much, but I ended up getting too little. But I managed to correct it for the second layer for both my middle finger as well as my ring finger. As you can see that when you add that second coat, it definitely deepens the color a little bit, and you can easily get away with it wearing in second coats. But if you're not as careful with your painting of your nails, you could end up needing that third coat like I do on that ring finger, that you can still see that little scuff mark. But once I added that third coat, not too thick, not too thin, just to balance it out, it gave me full perfect opacity. And here is 1, 2, and 3 coats of Owl Lacquer's Bauble. Next, we have Cupcake Polish Hot Girl Fall. I really wanted to look for a nice dark green that really spoke to me. On screen, it might look a little bit blue leading, but it's definitely not in real life. It has the intense hollow, as you can see, just reflecting through the light as well. What's also nice about this polish is that it is pretty much one coat coverage. If you aren't very careful with it, you will want to go in for that second coat, but you can still get away with this with one coat, especially if you have shorter nails. For this one, when I did the building of the second and third coats, I didn't really have too much of a difference between 1, 2, and 3. Maybe just had it looked a lot cleaner. This polish is just such a gorgeous color though. I love that it's a nice dark green, which is definitely my favorite color, but I love just how holographic it is, and especially how bright it shines in the sun as well. as you can see that there might be a little bit of a difference between that first and second coat, but it's not much of a difference. And then with that third coat, I really didn't see a difference at all, but it's still good to have that comparison for consistency's sake. But yeah, not too much of a difference, but overall still a gorgeous color. The formula, so smooth and easy to work with. I especially love that brush. That is definitely my favorite kind of brush. And here's 1, 2, and 3 coats of Hot Girl Fall. Next we have KB Shimmers Let's Hang. This is a magnetic polish. As you can see, it has this intense green shimmer in it, but then it also has those gorgeous flakies in it. For this polish, I decided to magnetize on the last coat of each one, so you can also see what it looks like with 1, 2, and 3 coats unmagnetized as well. So I actually am surprised with the coverage I got with the magnetization on the first coat. Normally with these polishes, they end up being pretty sheer after you magnetize, but this one ended up still being full opacity, and I love that it made it a lot easier for those flakes to shine through. I would recommend holding for magnetic polishes at least for the full minute on it, just because magnetic polishes lines do tend to spread out. And then if you add a top coat to your polish, which I didn't add to any of my swatches, you'll definitely want to put the magnet back under just to make sure that that line stays nice and crisp. Having that top coat dry down after you've added the top coat with the magnet will also help keep the line nice and crisp as well. So for this one, I feel like that adding the extra coats definitely darkens the color underneath once you do apply the magnet to it. I feel that 2 coats was the perfect amount. You can still see the magnetic line come through on the 3rd coat, but I feel like since this polish was on the thicker side for me, that it would still be better just to do the 1 coat base and then the 2nd coat magnetized. But there's 1, 2, and 3 coats of KB Shimmers Let's Hang. Up next, we have Owl Lacquer Hysterical High Pitch Screaming. This was part of their Hella Handmade Creations for August 2022 for their site collection. This is definitely one of my favorites because it is a more yellow leaning light green with a beautiful holographic shimmer in it. As you can see, it is fairly sheer on this first coat. Definitely, if you wanted to wear this on 1 coat, you could, but I feel having that 2nd or 3rd coat would be better just because it really brings the hull out a lot more. It also, if you have a more visible nail line like I do, you definitely want to have that, at least that 2nd coat on, especially if you want to cover it. This nail polish does have a little bit of streakiness in it, but it does tend to go away as it dries down. As you can see on that first finger, it's not very streaky anymore. Once you add that 2nd coat, you can definitely see more of that beautiful lime green color come out, as well as that holographic shimmer. For whatever your final coat is, I would definitely try to have your lines as straight as possible to minimize that streakiness in appearance. Another nice thing about this one is because it's so thin, you can easily build up the colors, which will make it a lot easier to see how dark you want the polish or how intense you would like it. I personally would wear this one in at least 2 or 3 coats depending on how I'm feeling. For the swatch as of recording this video, I personally would prefer wearing it in 3 coats. I feel like that gives you the most color payoff as well as the most holographic payoff as well. And here is Hysterically Screaming 1, 2, and 3 coats. Next we have a collab from Kelly Marissa. This first one is Mystic Jelly. I will be honest right off the bat that because this jelly is so intentionally sheer, I did not do the best job I could making everything even. You will definitely see that reflected on the 2nd and 3rd coat. For the first coat, it's not too bad, but you can definitely see that it's a lot lighter at the tip of my finger than it is near the base of my fingernail. But this is definitely still a gorgeous color. Last I looked, this collection was still available, but if it's not, sorry. It was part of a October collab that she did with Orly, and I just really loved these colors, especially the rest of the glitters, but this was definitely the standout color for me. I loved just how with each layer the purple got a lot more intense, and it definitely is a lot more warm leaning the more coats that you add on it. I would, as I said before, recommend that if you plan to wear this one on its own, definitely paying attention to how you are doing your coats just to make sure that they are as even as possible. When you look at it like this, you can see it's not too bad, but when I add that third coat, it really starts to show the unevenness. I do think part of it's just because of my intense nail line, as you can see as well. Even with my short nails, that nail line still shows through pretty strongly. And here we have 1, 2, and 3 coats of Kelly Marissa's Mystic Jelly. To go with this one, I do have the topper Wing It that's also from that same collab. This one is a really special one. It does have those back glitters in them. They are fairly heavy and thick, so they can be a little bit of a pain to get off. But they are also accompanied by these beautiful matte hex glitters and this gold sparkle through it. It definitely really adds to whatever polish you are wearing, and especially around Halloween. Even though the pads are generally heavy, they are fairly easy to get out, but if you're having troubles, you can always turn your bottle upside down and then give it a good swirl or pour some out on the bottle. They're also fairly easy to do placement, like you can see there. And there's 1 coat of Wing It. Next we have Pear Polish, which definitely has become my favorite brand. This first color I am doing for them is called I Heard Her Eye Twitching. It was inspired from Encanto. This was part of her 1 batch releases, so if it's still available, I will link it down below. If not, I'll just link her website. One of the cool things about this is that it is this gorgeous primary red color that shifts into a nice primary yellow, and it also has these gold flakes into it. It's a really stunning polish color as well. This is definitely one I would recommend wearing in 2 or 3 coats, depending on how thick you like your application. As you can see that it's very peachy for that first color, or you could, when it's warming up, my hands were fairly cold because I do get cold fairly easily, but when it warms up, it definitely turns into a much prettier yellow. But when you have 1 coat, it also kind of looks like when you mix ketchup and mustard together, which I don't mind, but it's definitely like it's definitely an interesting color. Once you add that second coat, you can definitely see the richer color coming out. You can also see that my hand is a little bit warmer on this one, and the shift's a little bit slower since my hand is warming up, but that first color is still stuck in between that ketchup mustardy color, but definitely more yellow leaning now. For this one, I would like to wear in 3 coats. I generally prefer to wear all my thermals in 3 coats just because I feel it gives the most color payout. But once you add that 3rd coat, you can definitely see just how rich the flavor is, and I love that the flakies shine through when you go through it no matter what. Even in the yellow, the flakies still shine through fairly well. And so here is what it looks like when it's completely in its cold state. You can see it's that nice bright intense red, and then here's what it looks like when it's in its warm state. You can see that starting to turn back, but there's 1, 2, and 3 coats of I Heard Her Eye Twitching. The next color we have is Thanks for Noticing Me from her Winnie the Pooh inspired collection. This one definitely became an instant favorite, and when she first showed it on one of her What I Wore videos. I had to buy it right away. It's the stunning gray Crelly with these black, silver, and pink flakes in them, and it even has, with those flakes, kind of gives a nice aurora shimmer. This definitely is like your polish. You can see it just by looking at it. There is no doubt where the inspiration was. I love the size of the flakes. I also do actually enjoy her brushes that she chooses. Timberland, the creator of Pampered Polishes, tends to have a fluffier brush, but I feel like even when you do some scraping, you still hold enough polish in it that it makes application fairly easy. I do also love that even on that first coat, it still looks absolutely gorgeous, but I would still prefer to wear this in 2 coats normally, just because I like how 2 coats feels the best. But even when you add that 3rd coat to it, like we'll see in a little bit, it's still so gorgeous. I just can't get enough of this polish. I do wish that I had bought another bottle of it, because it sold out within a couple hours of its release. And there with that 3rd coat, you can definitely see that gray Crelly does deepen up a little bit, but it also still brings out those flakes as well. And there's 1, 2, and 3 coats of Thanks for Noticing Me. Next we have Red Owl Lacquer and their polish Enterprise. This one came out in 2021, but I bought it in 2022, which is why I included it in this video. What's really nice about this polish is that even though it's fairly sheer, as you can see, that when it's built up to 3 coats, it's really hard to see that it's sheer, especially when you hit the light and all those beautiful flakies in it are able to come out. What's also really cool about this polish, and I don't know what it is, but on the first day that I wear it, the dark is fairly dark and the lighter shade of the thermal isn't too bright, but once you end up adding that 3rd coat, your top coat, and you let it sit for 24 hours, that blue definitely comes out a little bit more. I'm not sure why that is. Maybe that's just the nature of this thermal, but I just really love how the blue ends up becoming more intense 24 hours after application. I do love how gentle this one is. You could easily pair it over a similar darker color just to make the polish last longer, or just to deepen it up overall. But with all those flakes in it, it definitely doesn't make the sheerness feel like it's overly sheer. It definitely creates more of a beautiful color with it as well. This one is getting discontinued, unfortunately, but here is the polish in its cold state. As you can see, it's more on the darker side, and then here is the polish in its warmer state. You can see that blue, but when it dries, it's a little more intense. And there's 1, 2, and 3 coats of Enterprise. And finally, we have Starlace Dragon. This one is definitely a gorgeous color as well. What I love about this one is that it does have that nice deep red base, but as you apply it, it does have more of a purple color to it. It does shift between that purple, and then it also has, at certain angles, an intense red, yellow, and green shimmer going through it, so it really makes this polish special. It's almost like a shimmer and a multichrome in one. This is definitely one that you can get away wearing in 1, 2, or 3 coats, depending on how you apply it to your nails and how you like it. For me, as you can see, that 1 coat nail ended up looking really good, but I didn't get enough on my brush for the 1 coat on my middle finger, so I had to go back in and add a little bit more. But it's still a really gorgeous color with it. But you can also see that the color definitely deepens up when you add that 2nd and 3rd coat. One of the nice things about the formula is that it is fairly easy to work with, and it is easy to control how much or how little you have on your brush. Just don't, if you're like me and you don't like having too much, don't get a little too aggressive with wiping your brush, because you will end up swiping off more than you need. But as you can see, that it almost completely fixes up the errors I have on it. I just still am not having a good time with this one, getting it evenly covered on this nail. But once I get that correct amount on and I have the second coat on, you can see that color is definitely a lot darker, a lot richer. You can see some of the shimmers starting to come out as well too. One thing I will say about the Surly finishes in this style, for me anyways, is that I would not recommend shaking the bottles before you start using them. I'm not sure what it is, but for pigments like this, and not just in Starly but other brands, when it's really shimmery like this, if I shake the bottle before I use it, I usually end up getting lots of bubbles, so wouldn't recommend doing that. Shake it at least 20 minutes before you plan to use it for best results, but it does also do a good job covering any errors. And there's 1, 2, and 3 coats of dragon. And here are all 10 polishes together, plus the honorable mention. Thank you so much for coming and watch this video. If you liked it, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!